Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Feece School, number 20. Today, I'm going to be talking about the basic functions of a camera and how you can understand the concepts of how cameras work a little better. Enjoy. Welcome back to another episode of Luke Talks, bros. The first thing I'm going to bring up is the ratio. Now, there's so many different ratios for so many different things, but today I'm just going to talk about the two basic ratios, 4:3 and 16:9. 16:9 is the standard movie, let's say you go into a movie theater. That's usually going to be 16:9. Back when cable television was more popular, people would do 4:3, and that would be more of a box, like early Simpsons movies or things on the TV would usually be 4:3, and movies would more be 16:9. So those are two different ratios but usually today, these days, people basically only use 16:9 unless there's something else that they're doing. Now next, I'm going to talk about frames per second. Now, 30 frames per second is the standard, and 60 frames per second is a lot more. If you're going to film in slow motion, you're going to want to do 60 frames per second. I'm going to move my hand from one end to the screen to the other. And this is 30 frames per second. And that was slow motion. And I'll do it with 60 frames per second now. Now we're on 60 frames per second. So if I move my hand from one end of the screen to the other, you'll notice that there's a lot more frames in between each shot. Well, there's a lot more frames. So that way you can see each detail as it moves across the screen. If it's 30 frames per second, it looks a little more choppy. I'm going to go back to 30 frames per second just because it's a standard, and I don't know, I like 30 frames per second unless I'm trying to do slow motion and capture things really spot on. Back at 30 frames per second, what are we going to talk about next? Well, I'm going to talk about pixels. HD, high definition, is the standard these days. Back when you were in YouTube days, when in 2005 you make a YouTube video, you could explode by doing 480p. That's not the case anymore. You usually need to have, if you want to get good quality content, it's gonna have to be 180p, which is 180 pixels throughout the entire screen. 1920 by 180 is the standard. There's also 4K, which is 4000 pixels, and 8K, and 16K, and it keeps going on and gets really ridiculous. But if you want a nice, good film that looks good, 4K or 1920 by 180 is a great start to make quality, because if you film in 720p, it's just gonna look really grainy and no one's gonna really want to watch it. People only watch 480p when they're in the road trip and they can't get enough cell service to watch a good quality content, and it's just 480p. No one likes 480p, and try to go 1920 by 180. That's really important when we're remembering that when to start out. And you may be filming your camera in 180p, but if you're video editing and you export it, this is what happened with Dollar Per Day. It went out in 720 or 480p because I exported it wrong, and the whole thing was 480p and it didn't look good. But it was a huge file, so it worked out. I mean, if it was HD, it would have been a huge file. It's an hour-long movie. You can check it out in the link below if you want. Also, there's another thing I'm going to talk about. Rule of thirds. Now, the rule of thirds is, think of two lines going across this way and two lines going across this way. Why? Because if you have a subject, I am the subject of this frame right now. And the rule of thirds is, if you're usually filming a movie, you're gonna want to have that subject, like let's say it's a certain shot where you want him in the center, that's fine. It's not like life or death. But usually, if you want to like have a character and you want to focus on that character and the background, having him at where the lines intersect on each end, right here, 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 and here, you will be able to have a good focus of the character in the shot. It's basically a way to focus on the subject while you're organizing the shot. So that's the rule of thirds. Now, last but not least, I'm going to talk about camera focus. Now, camera focus, I'm going to get out my camera. Does this turn on? Oh, this does turn on. I haven't used this in days. Anyways, so this is camera focus. Wait, you can't even focus this camera? Well, basically, most cameras have a lens cap where you can like focus it right here. This is a horrible camera, but if you focus it and turn it, you can try to direct what you're trying to aim your camera at. And I'll talk about focus. Wait, how do you focus this anyways? I'll figure that out later. Off. Turn off. There. Okay, cool. Now let's say you're reading a book, and if you were to read a book, you have to put it at the right level at your eyes so you can see the words clearly. That's why some people need reading glasses. So if you put the book right up to your face, you won't be able to read it because everything will be blurry. That's the same thing with cameras. If you put the camera right in front of the book, it will get blurry, but you can focus it to make it so it's not blurry. So it sometimes, my camera automatically, like, it focuses on what it wants to focus really well, but sometimes you need to twist the front of the lens cap, and that can help focus it. That's usually where the camera has the focus on. And you can focus on things, the subject, try to focus on the subject. That's about it for the functions of a camera. If you want more and want to get even more in detail, let me know if you want those kind of videos. Next video, next Monday, when the next Feece School comes out, I will be talking about how to use a camera on set. So that includes lighting, audio. I'll talk about more where to put the camera, and that's what I'll talk about in the next episode. Until then, peace out. Welcome back to another episode of Luke Talks, bros.